Welcome back to The Secret Truth. I'm George Butler along with my co-host,
Charlotte Littlefield, and welcome back, Dr. Ann Blake Tracy, Director of International Coalition for Drug Awareness. That's drugawareness.org. Welcome back, Dr. Tracy.
Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about naturally the response post-traumatic stress syndrome.
Okay.
And the potential hazards when a person who has, first off, what is post-traumatic stress disorder and what happens when you put an SSRI into the mix?
Well, post-traumatic stress disorder is pretty easy to understand when you know that the very first organ that responds to stress of any kind, whether it's chemical, emotional, physical, spiritual, the very first organ that responds to that is hit by that stress is the pancreas. So the pancreas panics. The pancreas starts producing too much insulin, which drops your sugar level. And when the sugar level drops, your body pumps adrenaline to normalize the sugar. What's adrenaline? It's your fight or flight hormone. So you either panic or you get angry. Like what happens to someone when they have a death? They either panic or they get angry because the shock has hit the pancreas. So what happens, of course, is a natural process, and you try to balance out the pancreas so that that no longer happens. But what we've known about serotonin forever is that when people naturally cannot break down serotonin, that it will produce migraines, hot flashes, pains around the heart, difficulty breathing, a worsening of bronchial complaints, but it will also produce tension and anxiety that appear from out of nowhere, along with depression and suicide, very violent suicide, hostility, violent crime, arson, substance abuse, psychosis, mania, organic brain disease, autism, anorexia, reckless driving, Alzheimer's, impulsive behavior with no concern for punishment, and argumentative behavior. So if it's producing this panic and anxiety or tension and anxiety that appear from out of nowhere, it's producing that same response in the pancreas. So it's magnifying what you've already got. In fact, Dr. Murray Esler down in Australia has just recently released more information. About 8 years ago, he produced his first, which was he found that people who are suffering from panic and anxiety, which PTSD is, have serotonin levels 8 times higher than normal. So he said, oh my gosh, why are we giving these drugs that increase serotonin to people who have panic and anxiety? And I'm standing back going, what do you think I've been trying to tell you since about 1990? The problem is the serotonin level is already too high.
This is very serious. The ramifications and the implications of your book, Prozac.
This is it's an international Holocaust. It literally is. Entire families are being wiped out. And not just these kinds of effects, but you've got a 7 times greater chance of breast cancer. If you got a 7 times greater chance of breast cancer, you probably have a 7 times greater chance of any kind of cancer. And that's just one of the physical effects. The diabetes rate's skyrocketed with these drugs. And then, of course, bipolar has skyrocketed with these drugs, mania. And now you have all these people taking the new antipsychotics on top of their antidepressants. And the new antipsychotics are kind of a mix between an antidepressant and the older antipsychotics. You get the serotonin level too high, you die just like Anna Nicole Smith's young son Daniel did. He died of serotonin syndrome. You just stop working because serotonin's main function is constriction of muscle tissue. You just have all the major organs of the body clamp up and shut down. You die of multiple organ failure. And we just continue to increase the serotonin levels every way we can, even naturally, because so many of the people in the health industry just bought the so-called serotonin theory from the drug companies, and they're doing the same thing to people. I had a young man who had a problem with LSD in his past, which is a serotonergic drug. And I told him, I said, because of your history, do not ever take St. John's wort. He called me about a year and a half later, and he said, didn't you tell me not to take St. John's wort? And I said, yes. Tell me you didn't do that. He said, I did. I'm on the side of the freeway in L.A. I had to pull over because I'm with my 6-week-old baby, and I began dreaming as I was driving down the freeway.
Well, I tell you, the synergy aspect of this is just, I mean, the other day there was an article talking about the high fructose corn syrup causing perhaps pancreatic cancer. I mean, that coupled with what you were saying earlier, I mean, it's destroying the world. I mean, these people, these are corporate interests, whether it's food or pharmaceuticals or whatever. The synergy coming together is just destructive. It's evil.
It is. Coming at us from every direction, it seems, huh?
Yeah.
But it's horrible. If people saw, you would only have to answer my phone calls for a day or get my emails for one day, and you would never want anything to do with these drugs again, ever.
That's just it. You have such an insight, and you're the expert in this area that you get so much. I mean, you've seen it on the battlefield there in the front trenches, and you're talking to people that haven't even come close to experiencing what you have. Is that not true?
Well, so many of them have experienced it, but they don't know. They don't understand it. They don't know enough. I did a show out of Seattle a few years ago, and the host started out with saying, wow, I didn't know these drugs were so widespread here because I don't know anybody on them. I said, yes, you do. You just don't know that they're on them yet. And after we talked about half hour into the show, and he really learned what the drugs do, he said, oh, my gosh, I think this is what my brother-in-law was on when he committed suicide last spring. He'd never put two and two together. Wow. They're getting away with murder every day of the week.
Can you join us the last segment, Dr. Tracy?
Pardon me?
Can you come back and just finish out the last segment with us, too?
Sure.
I mean, it's just too important. We've got to continue this conversation.
I know it is.
And we're going to leave it up to you on this last 10-minute segment to express what you want to in your own terms, in your own words, okay?